So let's move on to the fifth lesson. We've been talking about rights and constitutions, and the fifth lesson asks this question: what basic ideas about rights and constitutional government did colonial Americans hold? In fact, the text notes that more than 150 years elapsed between the early colonial settlements and independence. Can you tell us why that history is important?
Well, there are many reasons. Let's start first with the charters that were given to the corporations and the proprietors. Many of those charters granted liberties that British subjects would not have recognized, to which the colonists became quickly accustomed. Second, that policy of salutary neglect in terms of an empire policy gave the colonies tremendous freedom from having to obey British laws. They could claim the benefit of the law, but were in the wonderful position of not always having to obey it. That kind of freedom from the law looking over your shoulder can become a very enjoyable habit over time. I think the third thing is that the colonists were very familiar with contracts. I give up something to get something. Contracts were part of the charters, but also most of the colonists came to the colonies as indentured servants. They had contracts with the people who paid their passage. They knew what their rights and responsibilities were under those contracts. And contracts limit our behavior. If we obey the contracts, we work within their confines. Fourth, we had several generations of colonists who had no tie to the mother country at all. They didn't know the customs and traditions and expectations of formal society in England. They were used to something very different in the colonies. And I'm curious, how many of us really understand what life was like at a practical level in the mid-1800s? That would be the equivalent amount of time that passed from colonial period to the Revolution. We have become a different people. And it's, I think, that long expanse of time and generations that led Gary Wills to say in his wonderful book about the Declaration of Independence that Americans became free well before the Declaration was written, or to use his much better phrasing, the revolution occurred in fact long before it occurred in theory. The other thing that's really important, and we have to remember that colonial life was not this monolithic unity along the eastern seaboard. There were tremendous differences among the colonies, and how they developed their trade relations with various countries, how they developed their own internal commerce, their local governing forms. Over a period of 150 years, you really start to see big differences among these colonies, soon to become states. Even today, with all of the uniformity of the media and our commercialism, there are tremendous differences among the states, not only in their laws, but in their cultures and their expectations and their practices and their traditions that bind people in their states in ways that prevent them, except in times of crisis, from thinking of themselves as belonging to a larger political whole. All of that was going on between the original settlements and the Declaration of Independence in 1776.